2nd, 2023, held at City Hall in the Jeannie Seelig Room. Attending tonight, myself, Dave Wilborn, Don is here, and Kim and why am I losing my mind here? Kim and Bill. Kim and Bill are excused with are absent with excuse. Public appearances for non-agenda items. We have Mr. David Heath that would like to speak right now on non-agenda items. You're centered on the screen, David, so we can see you. You're still muted, though. Yeah, we can't hear you, David. I think you're muted at your end yet. We can see you fine.
He's having the kind of luck I always have. That's why I hate him.
He's muted on his end, isn't he? I believe so. Can you check?
Yeah, we're sending out audio here. That'd be on his end. Get a phone number from him also.
We're going to call you. We're going to call you in a second.
Go ahead.
Did he have a number?
I don't have his number. You got it?
Did he leave a number?
I got a phone number for him to dial into Zoom.
Oh. Well, he's dialed in, isn't he?
I'm trying. You're still muted, Dave.
All right, how's that?
No, he's coming. There you go.
Perfecto.
Amazing. Technology.
Go ahead, Mr. Heath.
I don't know if he heard you.
You're on for non-agenda items.
Okay, so can I ask a process question first, which is, so when we get to the SIP items, is there going to be an opportunity for me to speak once or once for the couple of items that I have a concern about?
Probably we would just let you say your piece. Go over the items you're concerned with. Let you have the floor and go through them. And typically when this board reviews the SIP, we're only looking at the utility, stormwater, and water systems. We're not looking at the fire and the administrative and things like that. This board stays focused on the public works portion of the CIP. So.
All right, so it's my understanding that this is the first time that the board has seen the SIP. Is that correct? As the board. So I'd like to just talk about what the stormwater utility is. So the operation of the stormwater utility is subject to the review of the City Council. The Director of Public Works shall be responsible for the maintenance and management of the stormwater utility under the direction of the Public Works. That's the ordinance. Here's the commentary. Under state law settled for 100 years, the stormwater utility is its own department, as is FUD 1. It's distinct and completely separate from the Department of Public Works. The board, as the governing body, acts as a unitary body and is the chief executive officer of the stormwater utility. That means it makes policy and regulation. The Director of Public Works is the chief operating officer, administers the stormwater utility on behalf of the Board of Public Works. Giving direction to the director means passing motions, resolutions, and rules. No member of the DPW has authority to instruct CUF staff to take any action. The board operates as a unitary authority only through those motions, resolutions, and rules. Commentary off. Ordinance back on. Stormwater management services means the tasks required to control stormwater runoff, protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, and comply with state and federal regulations. Such services include, but are not limited to, erosion control, stormwater basin improvements, maintenance, culvert, storm sewer maintenance, stormwater management, etc. Again, key is comply with state and federal regulations. Public stormwater system means all public storm sewers, drainage conduits, etc., are constituted as the property and responsibility of the stormwater utility. Be operated to conserve water, control discharges, etc., reduce flooding, environmental degradation, and water pollution, and otherwise affect the quantity and discharge of the system. The city only acts through the stormwater utility with regard to anything of the stormwater. The city shall separately account for the stormwater utility finance. The stormwater utility shall prepare an annual budget, which include all operation and maintenance costs, costs of borrowing, etc. The budget is the subject to the review of the city council. So the stormwater utility provides stormwater services via the public stormwater system, which it owns, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public and comply with state and federal regulations. The stormwater utility operating and capital budget is prepared by the stormwater utility under the explicit direction of the BPW. Given those powers and duties, the stormwater utility is obligated to refuse to act on any proposed budget originated by the council, Department of Public Works, or any other body. If you do so, it's an abrogation of the BPW duties and powers established in 6.68. How much time do I have left?
3 minutes. I'll give you 5.
So, thank you. I appreciate it, and I think that'll be sufficient. So the Board of Public Works shall, subject to the review and advice by the Common Council, that means resolutions bounce off, take charge and manage the stormwater utility. Take charge and manage, as now hereafter constituted, and to undertake the responsibilities prescribed in 6204. Those are the powers given by the state to the council in the area of stormwater management. The BPW and the stormwater utility is the council. Commentary on. The board acts as the council and is the CEO of the stormwater utility. The BPW is the department head for the department that's the stormwater utility. The only power the council has is passing an ordinance. As the department head, the BPW has the power and duty to establish policies, procedures, rules, etc. Commentary off. BPW responsibilities on. Supervise and control structures and grounds of the utility. Make adequate provision for the enforcement of utility rules and regulations, and make provision for the management and control of the affairs of the utility, including the hiring and termination of utility employees, and take charge of the installation of new machinery, projection, planning, construction, and maintenance of utility improvements. So the point is that a budget that's sent to you, developed by the by the Department of Public Works, was not supervised by you and can't be approved by you or even considered by you, because it's your responsibility as the CEOs to understand not just stormwater, but also the provisions of the MS4. And the MS4 prioritizes projects that are required to comply with the water improvements of the Clean Water Act. So when you're considering the milieu of projects, you have to factor in the requirements that the MS4 permit puts on for projects that improve the water quality. So what I'm asking you to do today is basically tell the council, no, it's our job, and take this on as your charge, as what the ordinances say, change things, become the CEO of the stormwater utility for the city of Fitchburg, and ensure that politics don't drive this, but your expertise does, which is what the council intended when it created the stormwater utility. And thanks for giving me the time. I do appreciate it.
Mr. Haith, I'll just follow up a little bit. You know, Dave and I were on the board when the stormwater utility was created. You know, we were we went through a fair amount of iterations with the city engineer at that time, looking at different ones, and came up with we came up with our rules and regulations for our stormwater utility. And I believe very strongly in the stewardship I've seen over this by, the two members of us on this board and other members and our public works, that we are managing this per our ordinance, and we are audited. Our stormwater utility is audited. Now you have me on, you're asking me, am I going to create the budget? I'm going to say, no, I'm not. I'm going to rely on the city engineer, who some of his time is charged to stormwater to tell us which projects make the most sense, and we'll weigh in on those. Which ones we think we should do, or which ones we shouldn't, or if we should delay some. But I don't have the background to propose projects or things like that. I'll review things brought to me, but I'm not a civil environmental engineer, and we rely on our city staff, and we provide due diligence over them. And the stormwater utility does track its finances separately. We have a separate. It's called the stormwater utility. Their pensions, their time, the equipment charges. That is tracked separately. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but you can find those separate charges. Am I correct, Tim? Right.
Yes.
So I guess that's all I have to say. I'm taking your words, to heart, but at the same time, I'm not going to develop that budget. I'm in the projects. I'm going to review them with the other board members and give direction. Yes, you should. We want you to do this one, or nay, we don't want you to do that one, and then it would go to the council. The one thing I would admit to you is, we have too many council members that are proposing stormwater projects that aren't on this board. Well, their neighbor called me, we got flooded one time, we need to do this, and they throw it in, and I particularly don't like. Typically, I don't vote for those ones when they come that route. If there's a problem that's been identified, we look at it. Those I forward. So that's all I wanted to say to you in reply to that. Thank you for your well thought out comments and keen insight into this issue. We'll talk with you again when we get to the agenda items. Okay. All right. Next, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from June 5th?
I so move we approve the minutes of June 5th.
We have a second. Second by Bill. Any questions? See none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of the approval of minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. So I also note Alder Jetzer has joined us here, so for anyone watching. Okay. Next, we'll move to the report of the department head, city engineer and director of public works, Mr. Tim Volker.
For the record, Tim Volker, Director of Public Works, City Engineer. I'll start off with some staff updates. Last time we met, there were 4 openings. The part-time environmental engineer, Andrea, started Monday, June 12th. So that position's been filled. The project engineer right-of-way position, which currently Ross Kaler is in the seat for, who's going to be moving to the transportation engineer once his current position's filled. We successfully have a candidate that will be starting on Monday, July 10th in that position, and his name is Zach. So once Zach starts, Ross will be the transportation engineer. Transportation will be filled. The utilities engineer, we interviewed a candidate this morning, and then also interviewed 2 candidates for the engineering technician position open. So we have 2 openings still remaining, and then I'm going to be discussing and evaluating the candidates we interviewed for those 2 positions. So looking to get fully staffed here shortly.
Yeah, we'd like you to get there so you can focus on projects, not all HR. All right.
Next up, some utility updates. Well 5 is back in service. Once that was placed back in service, we started flushing water mains throughout the city last week. We anticipate completing the flushing of the water mains next week. And then with the well 5 being back in service, yesterday we were close to 4 million gallons a day in water consumption. Kind of the record for the city is 4.5 million gallons. The system can handle 7 million gallons a day. So what we're looking at doing is potentially issuing a voluntary water restriction. City's done this in the past. It gives the wells a break and helps the system recover. And kind of what that would involve is even an odd sprinkling day. So if you have an odd address, you would be allowed to water on the odd days. If you have an even address, you could water on the even days. And residents have followed that, and it has helped reduce water consumption during dry times like we're experiencing now. So like I said, we're discussing it, potentially issuing that, looking to issue that sometime in the future if the dry conditions continue and the high water consumption continues. As far as project updates, Sain Road reconstruction project, the Sain Road and Lacey Road intersection remains closed with the detour. We're hoping to have that open by the end of this month. However, we ran into some utility conflict details with MG&E moving some poles and AT&T having to get their utilities off the poles. So that's set us behind. We're looking kind of mid-July, end of July to have that intersection back open. The Lacey Road Seminole Highway reconstruction project, on Monday, June 12th, we closed down the intersection of Lacey Road and Seminole Highway. That's where the roundabout is going. We closed that down, and we're hoping to have that open prior to school starting in August. And then the contractor, Parisi, is still continuing to install the underground utilities, water and sewer for that project. And then lastly, Sherrill Drive stormwater improvements. The paving will be installed tomorrow and then looking to be substantially complete by the end of next week on that project. With that, does anyone have any questions?
Just have a comment. I think the board would be in favor if you want to impose the restrictions. Like everyone, just look out the window and see the grass, and so I'd say do it sooner than later.
Okay.
People have, in the past, like you observed or have heard, there is good compliance with alternate side water. Any other questions from the board?
Is the contractor looking for damages or for the delays from the utility companies? And do you have the ability to ding the utility company for the delays?
For Sain Road, they're looking for a time extension, and I guess my understanding is there was a time extension already coming from some delays that happened last year prior to me coming on board. So we're reviewing what they submitted, their schedule, to see what was warranted and how far back this is set. The city, I don't believe, I would have to look at the contract, but I don't believe we have anything in place to ding the utilities. Parisi or Speedway's not looking for any monetary, just a time extension on the delay. So the city wouldn't be on the hook for paying Speedway anything. It would just be giving them more time. So.
Any other questions? Thank you. Back to the agenda here. All right, I'll move on to our agenda items. First is 5A, Resolution R-123-23, approving a public water main easement in the third addition to Terrabassa and a public road right-of-way, public roadway and utility easement in CSM 15003 in Terrabassa. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move we approve, and I
Yeah.
think you may have mispronounced it, so I'll pronounce it again. Resolution R-10223.
10223. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. All right. So Bill moved approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Don. Mr. Haith, would you like to speak on this? I have you down for 5A. You're muted again.
Sorry, that was a mistype on mine, so go right ahead. Pass.
Okay, are you just gonna want to talk on the capital improvement plan? That's the only.
And the purchase order for
Utility improvements, is that
the, consultation on the police department,
okay,
the police
all right,
renovations.
I got you, thank you. I had it marked wrong. Okay. So on this, the Terra Vesta here, public, we needed water main easement to serve 2 additional lots, is that correct? Any other additional,
Yes, so the easement's necessary in order to install and maintain water services on outlot 73 and 74 of the 3rd addition to the Terra Vesta plat.
74 or 77?
73 and 77, sorry.
now this also includes a turnaround area? Is this the one? It also has a turnaround area?
Correct, so there's also an easement is needed in order to install temporary turnarounds, water main, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer at street stubs on outlot 2 in the CSM.
So the question I have for you, let the board ask questions first, and I'll wait till the end. Anyone have any questions on this?
The temporary turnarounds is like just gravel sufficient, or does that need to be asphalt that they're going to put in and then tear out right away?
I believe gravel's sufficient for us to turn around, just as long as it stays stabilized.
So when I looked at the, Phil, did you have any more? I'm sorry.
There's also one in the recitals there, item A, number 2, it says, "This easement shall terminate upon dedication of land to occur at a future platting of lands covered by the easement." So what happens in the future when maintenance is needed on the water and sewer and sanitary?
Wait, where are you reading from?
Page 6 of the agenda packet. Temporary public roadway and utility easement. Recitals.
Which part of the recitals was it?
A2.
A2, the easement shall terminate upon dedication of land to occur at time of future platting of lands covered by the easement. I would have to follow up on what that means. A2.
Make a note on that to follow up with the board. It's a good point by Alder Jetser. I don't want us caught in something where we can't do maintenance in the future. Or, while you're making a note, Tim, I'll ask another question. You're much better at multitasking than I am. The turnaround areas, it seems like the street ended where it was paved and then we're putting in a gravel turnaround area. Would you just turn around in the street? It didn't look like that area was that much wider than the street. I looked at those pictures here.
Is there, well, there's diagrams in there, but does that show any potential parking, like cars parked there that they might need to work around?
Oh, okay. I hadn't considered that.
And does it show it does say 65 feet. That's the width of the turnaround, or is that that can't be the width of the road?
Yeah, it would be the turnaround. I don't think we're that wide on the road.
That's that's like 2 roads.
Or is that the right way?
Yeah, it's looking like the depth ranges from 27 feet to 30 feet, and then the width is 62 feet to 70 feet. So it's a little wider than the right-of-way is 55 feet for the road. So the turnaround easement, it's kind of like a hammerhead, so you do a 3-point turn.
Sure.
To back up, so we do have larger utility trucks with cranes that need area to move, and you don't want to hit anything.
So what's in that area right now? Anything? Is it just like still wild?
I believe so. I don't believe it's been developed yet.
So do we bear the cost for putting that in? Or does the developer?
Putting what in the
The
easement?
gravel, well, you know, the gravel down for the turnaround area and.
That would be borne by the developer.
Good, okay. And. That's what it is. Okay. Thank you, Dave.
And why aren't they required to just pave it?
I do not know.
It's because it's gonna go through the winter, right?
It's going to go through the winter.
Yeah. Is this gonna be permanent until there's new development growing on there? So you're gonna be moving trucks around, plow trucks? Or is this gonna be closed out before winter time?
No, I mean, the easement's going to be in perpetuity. There's always going to be an easement. Well, no, it's a temporary turnaround easement.
Yeah, I don't know Don, I don't know the development schedule. Or maybe they haven't communicated to us for the remaining lots in this CSM. Given other developments in the city, I wouldn't expect it to sit very long. Bill, do you have a thought?
Well, I was just wondering if construction can proceed in the winter on this particular, on the water mains and stuff. Is there any,
I was thinking more it'll be done and they're gonna be plowing it.
oh, okay.
I was thinking too.
I thought you were thinking that, okay, oh, yeah, so.
I mean, they may be able to do some winter construction, but I'm more thinking they're plow blades trying to get around on the gravel and stuff. Versus if it's a paved surface, it'd be easier for them to turn around even with a hammerhead instead of a cul-de-sac.
But it's not permanent, it's temporary. And so this is just to get us through, the temporary duration that we need it for. So we're not, like paving a cul-de-sac. If it was more of a permanent thing, that's what we'd look to do, as long as we could get the land to do a cul-de-sac, but.
What is the future of Lacey Road at that point? Is that going to eventually continue on, or is that where it's going to terminate?
I don't know.
And if that is the terminus, then they almost have to do a cul-de-sac to get a snowplow to turn around there.
You're correct about that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know that. I don't know
But the
development well enough here.
The easement's not for the public, it's for us to access. So the
Right.
public's not if we need snow removal, we'd be the ones performing the snow removal only if we need to access that. So if it were to.
Well, I'm saying to plow to plow Lacey Road, you wouldn't be able to turn a snowplow around once you reach that terminus unless there is some sort of a cul-de-sac or a turnaround point for the snowplow.
Right. We'd have to pull up the plat to review to see how it's all connected. I mean, it's not just going to dead end. You need some type of a turnaround, either a hammerhead, cul-de-sac, or if it's a through street that connects in a future phase.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen
But the
map of
plat,
it next.
would show all that.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's all been thought out. This is just providing a temporary easement in the interim for us to access.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like they're planning on extending that.
Okay.
Google Maps.
All right, thank you, Bill. And we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 10223, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next. It's on my computer. Next, we have Resolution 5 Bravo, Resolution R 12923, adopting the 2024 through 2033 capital improvement plan. We have a motion to approve.
Would it be a good idea to postpone this to our meeting 2 weeks from now? I mean, non-council members have had
Yeah.
2.5 days to look
Yeah.
over a several hundred-page document, and Kim is absent right now.
Yeah. So
2 weeks from now,
we would meet on the,
Well, but 2 weeks from now, you would give you enough
Time to read.
opportunity
Yeah,
to read it
But
and
I
get
say
feedback.
I won't make that meeting, I'll be
Yeah.
gone out of town.
so it'd be 7, but you would be able to get, you'd be able to give us feedback on it.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And our next meeting's July 17th, so
Oh.
more than 2 weeks.
Right.
Because of July 3rd being prior to the 4th.
But it would be prior to
Our
the
council
meeting.
Is that too close?
I don't believe so. I would, just look, let me look at the,
Council meeting is the 25th,
yeah,
so that's a week and a day after the 17th.
yeah, that should be enough. I think that should be enough time. As Kim is not here, I would, she'll have some comments on it. Do you have any huge concerns?
So we're gonna set it aside for now.
I'd like to move postponement of Resolution R 12923 to the July 17th Board of Public Works meeting.
I'll second it.
All right, discussion, we'll call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And again, mention to the board, we will be, we're focused on the stormwater, streets, water system, the public works portion of this, not the city administrative, other parts of it.
Yeah, concentrate on the 70% that is public works.
That's all Mr. Haith, did you hear that?
Yes, I did, I understand.
Okay. Did you have any comments? I'd probably rather wait until the 17th to hear from you, but you can email me prior.
If I could just make 2 quick comments. So going forward, so I'd like to have Kim and Ben, it would be helpful to have them address the MS4 requirements and how those factored into the process of prioritizing the projects that were chosen. And then second, I would appreciate, and the executive authorities that I've always participated in, at the very minimum requirement was to have a presentation on the process overall used to identify the projects that were going to be considered and what the mechanism was whereby they were evaluated and how they were prioritized. That seems to me to be kind of the minimum level of oversight that's appropriate for this kind of thing, and I would appreciate seeing such a presentation.
Then, no, Tim? Can you pass that on to Ben?
Yes, we'll be.
Yes, Ben. Mr. Haith, I'll just add one thing also, with the stormwater and quite often we're dealing with issues of property being damaged, trying to resolve issues of property being damaged by the stormwater and finding the best way to manage that and keep that clean and minimize the property damage. So you're probably right. The MS4 might not have been the primary driver on some of the projects we selected. I'm just being honest with you about that. But same token, I put this in place. I can't
I'm trying not to have people's houses wash away or have their basements flood, due to inadequately planned stormwater in our city, or resolving things that we didn't anticipate. So, thank you. We'll hear, if you have any other questions before the 17th, let me know. Thank you for your time.
All right, I'm gonna stick around and comment on the police station renovation.
I got you. Okay. Next, we have Resolution R 12623, approving contract with London Construction for salt shed rehabilitation project. We have a motion to approve.
I so move we approve resolution R 126-23 for the salt shed.
Moved by Dave. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Bill. So as you know, our salt shed, the wood around the base of it has deteriorated over for a number of years. This has been on our radar for a long time. It's got to the point where we do not feel it has to be replaced due to safety issues with that building. And we have one bidder for this, Tim. The Linda was the only bidder.
Correct.
But they were below our engineer's estimate.
By 33%.
Okay. So what's your analysis of that? I'm just wondering, are they missing something, or are we?
No, we check, obviously when bids come in, we review it. We check it against other projects that we have going on, and also Jewel helped us review the bid, and they check it with other projects they're working on. Jewel was the engineering consultant we hired for this project. So, and also they, check their references to make sure that they're qualified to do the work, and they all check the boxes.
Yeah, London's a well-known Wisconsin road construction company. If this is let, would they have it? Do we have to evacuate all the salt in the building for this to be completed, or can they do it?
Not all the salt, certain areas may have to be removed, depending on where they're working, but that'll be coordinated with a pre-construction meeting to kind of see that, and Mark's team will be able to help relocate that salt when they're working in a specific area. But the shed does not need to be emptied in order to perform the work.
How long do you anticipate, would take to do this work? Is this a 1 month? Is it a 3 month?
I think I received an email today. They're hoping to have it done prior to December. The issue being the long lead with the lumber, the special lumber that we have. It's copper coated, so as long as they can get the materials, it won't take them long to perform the work.
So we could be getting our allotment of salt in before the building. We probably would be getting it in before the building is done. Or I'm just concerned, if they don't, nothing shows up until November. Our salt is coming in. I guess we just stack it outside and put something around it, or tarps, I guess.
And like the contract had it stated, December 1st is when we want them to be done, and the treated lumber is potentially 90 days out, but once they get that, they want to come in, complete all the work, and get out. So they anticipate it being done, completed sooner than that December 1st.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions from the board on this?
Yeah. So this building was constructed in 2007. It's less than 20 years old. That's not very old for a building. Is it old for a building that stores salt?
So kind of the evaluation that was performed by Jewel, what they kind of gathered was when it was constructed, some of the lumber wasn't treated per spec. So it was installed, and that wasn't caught by the city at the time. So, those are the members that have deteriorated. There are other members that are, that's why we're not replacing the entire building, because most of it is in good condition. It's the portion, the members that weren't treated per this original specification, that copper coating I was mentioning earlier. So that's kind of why we think it failed earlier. You're right, it should last longer. So that's
what would you expect the lifetime of this to be?
50,
Yeah,
like 50.
over 30 years,
Yeah, it depends.
not,
Are we, yeah,
not 16.
Right.
what, we're shingles on the outside of it, aren't we? Is it, or is it steel roof?
I don't recall.
I remember. You know, if shingles, then we're, you know, the roof anyway is probably 30.
Right.
But
But that's something we'll obviously be looking at closely as the material comes on site and what gets installed is per specification this time, so we don't have this issue 15 years from now.
So are the shed will remain largely intact and they're gonna pull out individual timbers and replace them in
Correct.
place?
Yep, and I believe some of the footings are being replaced also with those timbers. It's kind of the diagonal timbers on the outside, some boards on the outside. I believe Mark mentioned a lot of the wood on the inside where the salt is in good condition. You would have thought that's what would be deteriorated first. However, it's kind of on the outside.
salt was preserving it, and
Yeah.
like a boat sunk in the Dead Sea.
You know who built it?
I do not.
I can't remember either.
Monday,
Hopefully not.
Remember when Woodard was here, we went through that building?
Yeah,
And
I do.
I went through it with them, I think.
I'm disappointed, you know, but
It's just pieces of it that are already rotten.
Do we require now certs for the materials they use, or?
Yeah, that's something we'll be looking for, and also as the material comes on site to make sure it matches the shop drawings that we reviewed and approved. So the tags on each individual piece of lumber to make sure it has that coating and it's per the specification.
good question. Thank you for asking.
And I don't know, what's the size of these timbers and how far in does the treatment go?
I would have to look at the report and the drawings for that detail.
I know I've seen, like, you go to the Home Depot or Menards and there's landscape timbers and there's some, I forget what the phrase is, treated to failure or something, or treated to refusal, I think is what they say. And that's basically, they treat the wood until the wood refuses to take anymore, and those generally are lower quality because it doesn't get all the way into the center of the wood.
Not pressurizing, putting them in a pressure container and forcing it in.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R-12623 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, 5 Delta, resolution R-1123, 2023 radio and water meter purchase. Do we have a motion to approve?
I will move to approve our 1123.
Moved by Bill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Don. So we forgot to put these into our budget previously, and we'll be using money from the Verona Road to cover this cost. Is that?
Yeah, kind of the miscommunication happened between Public Works and Finance. Public Works had created a CIP project for large meter replacements, and when Finance had gone through our operating budget, they had thought that the small meters were included with the large meter CIP project, so therefore got removed out of the operating budget. So that's kind of the miscommunication that had happened. So for 2024, you'll see a CIP project for meter replacement, and both large and small are included in that.
I did hunt for this in the CIP, and I was a little confused about what I saw in there. And so, how do we cross-reference this? Because I think there was a GL account in here, right? Yeah. So there's a GL account listed in here, and you see that in the budget, but you don't see that in the CIP. I don't know. I just thought was there like there was a line item in there for like 150,000. That must be the large meters.
So when you reference the 150,000, is that in the 2024 CIP?
Well, now you're asking tough questions, because I looked at the 2023 and the 2024, and
So historically, how the city's budgeted the small meters, it's been in our operating budget. It hasn't been a capital improvement project.
even though the aggregate cost is more than 50K.
Right, so that's why it got moved to the CIP is because we're replacing so many with the new construction going on and then also replacing some of our older meters. So therefore, we did move it to the, that's why it is getting moved to the CIP out of the operating. So since this year, what's getting approved right now, and since it was left out of the budget, we're utilizing some money left over from the Verona Road capital projects budget. So that those are the GL numbers you're seeing there. In future, it's just going to be the revenue. It's not going to come from that Verona Road project. So it'll be budgeted out of the revenue from the utilities.
So it'll disappear the way it's being done now, essentially.
Yeah, you won't see it on the operating side. That 150, it makes me, that large of a number made me think that that's probably what was included in the 2024, 2033 CIP.
Water meter replacement new, project 4805, 150,000 in 2023, 450,000 in 2024, and this one is the 2023 CIP.
That's the 2023, so that's this year's budget?
CIP.
CIP
Yeah.
is the 150,000, and the city is replacing, we're going through, and that's I believe, an agenda item coming up is for large water meter replacements. We have to hire a plumber to do that work. So
Right.
the city in the next 4 years is going to be doing some significant work on our large meters. And therefore, that's why you're seeing that large of a number starting this year is because we're looking to start that August, September with that.
And then in the 2024 CIP, there's a line item also for project 4805, customer water meters revised, and that's like $32,000 to $42,000 going out the 10 years. Is that what this is?
That would be the small meters
Yeah.
getting added to it. So, because they got removed out of our operating budget.
Okay.
I would add, this is outside the resolution, but, we went through a relatively large investment in our water system to put automated meter reading in so that we could, we didn't have to be walking, going around reading the meters, having guys trip, dogs biting them, and plus it gave us monitoring, if someone had a leak, we could kind of see the trend that was completed that a number of years ago, but that is the system we have. We have a system we can read our meters, read our water meters remotely. Any other questions on this resolution? See none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Go ahead, Don.
So in the future budgets, it's rectified now? It's in your operating budget? Or
Yeah,
it's
both
not?
the small and large will be one CIP project.
Okay.
So we won't have this issue happen.
Any other questions? Sorry to rush. Okay. Then we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R 1123 for the 2023 radio and water meter purchase signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next we have resolution R 11323 approving contract with Pepper Construction for the construction management services for the police services facility. Do we have a motion to approve? I'll ask, does no one want to speak up or is everyone opposed to it? Okay, we should at least have discussion on it. Moved by Don, do we have a second? For the sake of discussion here.
I'll say.
Okay, moved by Dave. Mr. Haith, you would like to speak on this agenda item?
All right. So I sent out an email. The most interesting part of the email is actually the documentation. It's from the Department of Administration, and it's documentation of their RFP process. And my concern centers around the fact that nowhere in my experience do you save money or spend excessively than in this type of purchasing. It's easy, given the size of a contract we're talking about, $500,000. The number of bidders and the quality of bidders really determines a lot of what the actual cost is going to be. And so this experience that I have is a bit old. It's the late 80s, but I think the principle is still relevant. So I work for AT&T, and we were putting out the first digital PBXs, private branch exchanges, the telephone office exchanges. And it was relatively new technology. A lot of the customers that were wanting to try it were government agencies. And what we found was that some purchasers had no process, or a process that was invisible. And since a lot of these types of situations were try then buy, what we found was when they had no process or an invisible process, we basically stopped offering our bids to those areas because we had no idea about the probability of success, and we had no understanding of how it was going to be evaluated and how we might improve our bids or our proposals. And that's really at the heart of what my issue is that we're seeing a smaller number of bidders on a lot of projects. And that drives up costs. That's just a fact. If you have 2 bidders, you're going to pay more than if you have 8 bidders. And the whole idea here is to get some visibility and discipline into the process so that everybody knows what the city of Fitchburg requires, and we're giving feedback to the bidders and vendors about what they can do better. It's a win-win cycle. And so what I'm asking for is, so you have to start somewhere. Just by presenting what the process was used. That's the first step. Once you've got the process presented, then you can work on it. If you don't have a process, you got no handle, you got no way to improve. And so what my suggestion here was vote no, have a presentation next time on the process, start to post this kind of information on the internet, on the website, so that vendors can see it. It's got to start somewhere. If we don't do it, it's costing all of us money. And that's really my meta point here.
So you're asking the process, Mr. Haith, I don't know what the process was for selecting this vendor for this work, or what was the process for writing the spec for the...
Well, it's all of it. And that's why I sent the documentation. Now, the DOA process is a bit overkill, but the discipline that is within it and the specification of the individual elements helps drive the development of the RFP, and then helps drive excellent evaluation of the proposals that come in. Instead of doing it ad hoc, develop sets of criteria that you can reuse, right? That's the great thing about a process. Process is something that you can reuse all the time. Once you've done that, then you'll start to see more bidders, and you can start to continue to improve your process. And as you put more information out there and you develop more detail, it's a win-win cycle. But you have to start somewhere. It's nothing like this is ever a big bang, right? You don't go from 0 to the best process in the world. You start little. What did we do? Even if you don't post it internally. And then let's say, compare it to some of the things that are in those documents and say, hey, we could do this, and we could do it better if we follow the kind of process that's in these documents.
Tim, tell me, but the RFP, that was posted publicly, right?
Yeah, it was advertised in the Wisconsin State Journal on 2 different dates, and then we post to Quest CDN. It's a public website that advertisements are posted to. We also emailed local contractors. There were 2, 4, 6 of them. Out of the Quest, there were 12 plan holders. Paul also had a pre-bid meeting to kind of go over the RFP for contractors to come in, explain the RFP, what's expected. And then the RFP listed out the factors that the proposals would be based on in the point system.
I don't think we did anything in the shadows, Mr. Haith, on this.
No, I'm not implying that. I'm saying if you had a, so that sounds excellent, right? Put it up. Put up the process, put up the evaluation so that you can see it internally and the vendors can see it. Then they have great comments. They go, hey, here's a place that's on the ball. I know that when I spend money, and it's typically a fair bit of money on an engineering services contract, that it's going to get a fair shake. And even if I don't make it, I'm going to get great feedback about how I can improve it for the next time. You get more bidders, better bidders, and it just builds. I'm not talking about shady. I'm just saying that this is a process. And because of the amounts of money and its services, it's not hard costs like asphalt, right? It's people, and so the cost variation of bids can be real. Our proposals can be huge. The more you get, the more precise it is. It's just a win-win cycle, and I'm suggesting that you start somewhere, post it, and if you can post it publicly, great. But start the cycle.
Do we say the unsuccessful bidder do we provide them with the information when it's done if they requested? They know what their bid was. Do we tell them what this, if they requested, I assume this is public records, that we tell them this was the successful bidder and they bid this much and.
Yeah, they get a letter stating, which firm is selected, and then, they can follow up and request all the documents, the appraise, the proposals, the evaluation scoring, all that's public record.
Okay.
Do the completed,
Post it.
yeah, do the completed RFPs, what happens to those? Are they stuck on base somewhere? Are they available if we?
Yeah, we keep them on file.
Should they be part of this agenda packet?
Well, they come through. I think they're usually in there in the evaluations. I think what I'm gathering here is we're doing what Mr. Haith would suggest, except when it gets done, we post it on our website or something like that, Mr. Haith? Is that what you're getting at?
Right. I mean, it's continuous process improvement, right? You're creating an interactive environment with your vendors instead of the vendors putting something into a black hole, and if they want to find out what actually happened, they have to issue an open record request or something like that. This way, it's just a natural process that everyone sees and everyone can participate in making better. They'll do better proposals if they know more specifically what you're looking for. And each side, by improving their process and being more precise in what the particular either evaluation criteria or the feedback criteria, all those little things matter. And in the end, because it's engineering services, it can make a big difference. And if Tim's got this information, it's not a big deal to post it.
I would add one thing, in my experience, dealing with contracts and bidding, the pre-bid meeting is very valuable, as far as get everyone comparing apples to oranges or apples to apples, that single meeting is maybe, as important as anything you do, because then they can't say, well, I didn't understand it. You had your chance to ask questions. All right, well, we'll call the vote in a minute, but what I would like, Tim, and I don't want to make this a big deal, but can we just get a couple paragraph? This is our process. The RFP, is developed by you or whatever. It's how we advertise it. What are criteria for how the bids are evaluated. Price, references.
And that varies by project.
Yeah,
so your evaluation criteria is going to be different for everyone.
You can just give us a general outline so we have a general document. I don't want you to spend much time, but I think it'd be helpful for the help side. Has to fit under my. It can't be higher than I can jump over, and that would not be very high. But just
it was on one page, kind of the process for the board to have. And we have new members, and thank you, Mr. Haith. I appreciate your comments.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate you letting me speak about it.
Appreciate it. All right, then we'll call the vote here. All in favor of resolution R 11323, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have resolution R 12223, amending the 2023 water utility budget for an LTE plumber for large meter replacements. We have a motion to approve. Moved by Bill. Do we have a second? I'll second. Second by Dave. With the larger than 1.5 inch, we require is that a state code for plumbers, or plumbers are required if we're 1.5 inches or larger? What drives that?
Yeah, the Public Service Commission, the responsibility and cost of the replacements is with the utility, not the property owner, and it must be done by a master plumber, which the state regulates. So as you mentioned, it's looking to replace the 1.5 and 2 inch meters over the next 4 years. And we're looking to hire an LTE master plumber, which would be a lower cost than hiring a contracting plumbing firm to come in and perform this work. Looking for the LTE to work about approximately 400 hours a year.
Retired plumber.
That's about all you're gonna be left with. If you can find one that wants to do some part-time.
Well, there's some guys that are retired, and they don't want to be totally out of it. A little spending money. All right.
That's pretty good spending money for retirement.
Yeah.
Is the requirement the master plumber has to do it, or just they have to oversee it? So you could have your staff do it.
Our staff is not allowed to do it unless they're a master plumber. So a master plumber has to perform the work. They can't. They
just don't oversee it.
Correct.
And you don't have any master plumbers on your staff.
We do not.
The funding of this, as I gather, we'd make this up, we think, in our future rate case for this position, or this cost.
Correct. So the future costs would be, based on revenue and the rates. And then this year, I believe we had money, a large meter replacement capital improvement project that we previously discussed. Some of that money would be directed towards this LTE. So that $150,000, some of that money would be.
I was going to ask, because it looks like we're asking to shuffle $20K from the same fund that we're asking $54K for earlier.
But the $54K.
But that's for the small meters.
And remember, the $54K is coming from Verona Road, so it's getting moved into it's getting added to that $150.
Right.
So
but it looked like we were moving $54K in there and then $20K out. Is that not true? Or was that for that specific?
It's for two different things.
Meters?
So the 54 is coming in for the small meters,
Okay.
and the 20K is leaving for the plumbing for the
large meters.
The large meters, yeah.
Oh, we can keep it straight.
So you got to be a master.
Laws and
I'm
regulations.
glad we have Misty. Misty. All right, any other questions on this? Again, we're obligated.
Not in this particular, it is what it is, but for future, it sounds like regulations, everything's going towards having this master plumber certification. Is that a change in thought now, and are you doing staffing in the future?
I don't believe so. We only need them for only 4 years, 400 hours, and it's not. You don't replace this every year. I think the last time we replaced it, if we did, was over a decade ago. So it's not something we need.
So this $20K per year for the next 4 years is the current projection, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 12223, amending the 2023 water utility budget, LTE plumber for large meter replacements, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have Resolution R-12323, accepting subdivision improvements for the Chapel Valley plat of Lot 53. We have a motion to approve.
I'll move approval.
Moved by Bill, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Don. So this is fairly straightforward. You've inspected this, and it's to your satisfaction, all the improvements here.
Yeah, they have a couple punch list items for lot 53 remaining. We're confident that those will get addressed prior to when this gets approved for common council.
Okay. So council will be next week, so if they haven't had them done by then, let me know so that I can postpone this in council.
Absolutely.
Any other questions on this? Pretty standard. Call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R-12323, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have Resolution R-10323, accepting public pedestrian bike easement and public sidewalk easement and releasing a public utility easement and public stormwater easement in Highfield Reserve. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Moved by Bill, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Don. I'll let you weave this tapestry here for.
Yeah, there's several moving parts with this one. The first one was there was a public bike path that was installed on lot 271, and a portion of the public sidewalk was installed on lot 44 within the plat. And these were incorrect locations, so the developer had either the choice to remove the improvements and put them where they were supposed to be, or give us an easement for these current locations. We didn't have an issue with them remaining where they were, just as long as we had an easement for them. So the developer chose to keep the improvements in their current location as installed, and then provide a pedestrian and bike path easement and sidewalk easement for these. So that's kind of the first moving part. The second one, the subdivider was able to obtain a private drainage easement from the adjacent property owner to manage runoff from the adjacent site. Therefore, the storm sewer no longer needs to be installed along lot 271's west property line due to the private drainage easement being obtained. That storm sewer that was going to be installed along lot 271 was kind of a plan B. Plan A all along was to get the adjacent property owner to give an easement. They were having some issues getting that easement, so they had kind of came up with a plan B in case that didn't come through. But it eventually did come through, so the plan B storm sewer easement's no longer needed. Therefore, we're looking to remove that. And then lastly, the third moving part and the last moving part is VH Highfield Reserve has submitted a CSM to re-subdivide lots 18, 19, and 20 into 4 different parcels. Therefore, the public utility easement on these lots need to be released. We don't have any utilities in these easements, and we don't anticipate a future need for the easements. Therefore, we're looking for authorization to release them.
Thank you. That is a lot of moving parts. I'll just add, I think many of you hear this from, I think all developers, they'll want to complain, oh, the city's so horrible to work with, or this or that, and I've never felt that. They'll say that about our city too, but we worked through this issue with them. We made accommodations, and we came to a solution that we could have dug our heels in. I think our neighbor to the north would have done that and made him move it, and so I believe we are a accommodating city to work with, to get improvements made in the city. Any questions on this?
I'll just say it seems wasteful to have made them tear it up and move it. It just seems silly.
Well, I think it was wasteful on their part not to follow the plan.
Yes.
Is there a required change in the certified survey map, or
public records so that 10, 20 years from now, someone's gonna say, well, you never owned that, because my deed says this?
So as part of when they go to subdivide lots 18, 19, 20 into 4 parcels, they have submitted a revised CSM for that to reflect all those changes. So that's going through the approval process of the city currently to do that. And that would be recorded, and therefore one would be able to go back and see that.
And then, I probably didn't look at it that close, but you don't need for future utilities for this? I don't know what they're putting in these.
Correct. We
Residential properties that don't need to be hooked up to city water?
right. So it just come from the right of way. We don't need to run through the easements in between the lots for this. So right now there's 3 lots. Easements run along the lot lines, and they want to subdivide that into 4 parcels. We don't need those easements. That would just be in the middle of the new parcels that they're subdividing. So we release that.
So the utilities are in the road right away, is that what you're saying?
Right. And they can come off that to serve the lots.
And there's, maybe back to the other question, I don't know what future development is behind it gonna be. You won't.
Right, we don't need,
You'll have that.
no need to do the system.
Anything else?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's 2 instances now that I'm aware of that occurred 25 years apart, but we discussed them only 1 month apart, where developers encroached on land that was beyond what they should have, either into an easement or just maybe into public space. I mean, how often does this generally happen? Is this unusual? And do we know how these things get missed?
Depends on the developer.
It happens time to time. It's just a lack of oversight on the design engineer, which is hired by the private developer, overseeing that and making sure that what they designed is constructed per the plan. So it depends on the construction oversight that the developer hires to make sure that their project gets built per plan. The city also reviews it, but we're not out there 24/7. And
Do we sync benchmarks out there to mark property boundaries or anything
they
physical?
do, yeah. They hire.
So do they put it in the
before
wrong place, or?
Yeah, before a project starts, all it's staked out and. So the contractor can build it per plan. So something happened with that, whether it was misstaked or a stake got moved, maybe hit, and or just the installer misread the stake. So, but in this instance, we're able to accommodate not having to rip it up, and still, as long as they provide us this easement.
So you keep a record of, because there's always bad characters out there, but in this case, or cases, you have an engineering firm that did it. Do we hire those firms?
Well, the engineer may not necessarily have done it in this instance. I mean, it could have been the contractor just misinstalled it. It could have been someone mishit a stake. The surveyor could have laid it out. I don't specifically know the exact reason on why this won't happen. But yeah, we obviously do know the engineering firms that are good, ones that have an issue just by dealing with them and the issues that pop up during projects, both public and private. So, yes.
I say, hopefully it wasn't when you're, building the hotel, the owner said, I'll make it a little bigger.
Spread it out.
Comes before that Herbst on the board, he'll let us. That's not what the
Swim for free.
Any other questions on this? No. All right. Call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 103-23, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have Resolution R 110-23, acceptance of 2023 utility improvements bid. We have a motion to approve.
Move to approve R 110-23.
Moved by Bill, second by Dave. big project, many parts in there, 2 bidders, and one, the low bidder, we did not find acceptable references for them. The one bidder that was acceptable has worked with us before, but was 33% higher than our estimate. Is that right, Tim?
Yeah, I don't know the exact percentage, but they were higher than the low bid. So the low bid was 826,000, and then the other 821,000, and then Speedway, which is what we're recommending, is 930,000.
How much was Speedway above the our engineers estimate?
Speedway was, let's see, approximately $104,000 above our engineer's estimate.
Okay, so 16%. Speedway is doing our current project on Sain Road.
Yeah, so the Sain Road, Cheryl Drive stormwater improvements, and they're also doing our stormwater pond dredging.
Okay. When you went through the line items, was there one that jumped out that was higher, or was it kind of general across the board that they were higher than our estimation?
Kind of just general, nothing really jumped out a lot. The ductile iron pipe seemed a lot like our engineer's estimate was 291,000, and Speedway sand and gravel was 428. So that's kind of the big difference right there, is just the ductile iron jumped up whenever we did the estimate, and Speedway received their bids.
Okay. So again, this, it's one resolution. There's a number of, there are a number of projects in this basket on this one. A lot of things we wanted to get done for a while too.
Can I just, you said the low bidder was not acceptable because?
Yeah, what so with the bid, there's a V bid that gets entered into Quest CDN, and then also a paper form that gets uploaded with their bid submittal. And there was discrepancies with the cost, $60,000 difference on that. And then we also called, the bid required 5 references. We had to follow up with them because they only provided us 3. So we called some of the references too, and had some concerns based on the feedback we got from them.
Yeah, it's important to check references. I'm glad we do that. We had a project many years ago where Lacey Road, our intersection out there with Highway 14, and we didn't pick a good contractor, and they basically, in the middle of it, they picked up and walked away. We're stuck with a half-finished project, and they said, sue us, and if we would have gone with a little higher there in the first place, it would cost us a lot less, but hopefully, that's why we check these references.
And then process-wise, was there a pre-bid or I'm just surprised there were more contractors. It's not really rocket science work, so.
We received 3 sealed bids on this project. So it was Speedway, Essential Sewer and Water, and Parisi Construction, who's the contractor doing Lacey Road for us currently. Construction's busy right now. A lot of the contractors are. But yeah, this followed there wasn't, I don't believe, a pre-bid meeting for this. It's water main's pretty straightforward work, and the line items were straightforward that really didn't necessitate a meeting to explain the project.
And this, the water main replacement, these are areas in the city, older water mains that are starting to become less reliable.
some of the original ones, I think.
Yeah, and really, these 3 streets are scheduled for resurfacing, so we wanted to time the replacement of these older water mains with the resurfacing to do them all at once. It's more cost efficient to replace the water mains and sanitary sewer at the time of resurfacing. You know, therefore, that's why we wanted to proceed with this project.
Oh, it makes sense. It's just concerning that there's not hungry enough contractors out there. It's particularly busy. Greasy's already in there, so they're already mobilized, so you think they would have lowered their cost just to get that?
Yeah, they were over $1 million. They were 1.3, about 100,000 more than Speedway.
Yeah.
They're typically higher. It has been my experience in the city. I'm not telling any one contractor over the
Tim, in the CIP, Belmar is listed as needing $430K in 2023, and Tower Hill was scheduled for $90,000 in '24 and another $680,000 in 2025. But in this resolution, we're only needing somehow $150,000 for Tower Hill instead of $700,000. What's the story there?
Well, and that's just to transfer money. So we had the money budgeted.
Okay.
So since this came in over budget, we're looking to transfer some of that money to make up that difference. So that's kind of are you looking at the values in the resolution listed? The
Yes.
160? Yeah, those are the transfer amounts in order to pay Speedway the difference above and beyond what we had budgeted.
Okay.
I have to correct myself. I was thinking of a different vendor that was always higher than, it wasn't Precy, it was a different vendor that I think had enough work, and he would throw a real high bid, and I think they hit enough to be profitable. It wasn't Precy, so I apologize if they were watching. All right, any other questions on this? Again, this is city infrastructure that we're taking care of that's in need, and this is the type of projects that I feel very good about, that we're taking care of our city. All right, then we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R11023 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next meeting is July 17th. I'd ask everyone to spend some time looking at the CIP. Let me or Tim know if you have any questions on it. There's a lot in there, as there always is. I haven't seen there be any amendments or. But we will be taking it up in council here in the distant future here. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Moved by Bill.
I'll second.
Second by Dave. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.